Somewhere in the world right now, two countries are fighting over land. It's been that way for as long as anyone alive can remember, and most of us just accept it as part of being human. Countries fight. People fight. That's the assumption. But for most of the 20th century, a lot of anthropologists actually argued the opposite. They believed that organized fighting, real group-on-group violence, wasn't natural at all. They believed it was invented, a byproduct of farming, property, and civilization. Take away the modern world, they said, and you'd find peaceful hunter-gatherers who barely fought at all. Then, in 2012, a team digging on the shore of a dried-up lake in Kenya found something that blew that idea apart. The site is called Nataruk, and it sits near Lake Turkana. A team led by Cambridge archaeologist Marta Mirazon-Lar was excavating the remains of a hunter-gatherer group when they started uncovering skeletons in strange positions. Not buried carefully. Scattered, twisted, some with their hands still bound. As they kept digging, the picture got worse. Of the 27 skeletons they found, at least 10 showed clear evidence of violent death. Skull fractures from blunt weapons. Arrow points still embedded in bone. One skeleton had a wound consistent with a sharpened wooden weapon straight through the chest. The remains dated back roughly 10,000 years, to a time before farming had reached that part of Africa. These weren't soldiers. There was no state, no army, no chief giving orders. They were foragers, and something had wiped out an entire group of them at once. It's the oldest solid evidence we have of one group of humans deliberately killing another group of humans in an organized attack. That single site reopened a huge argument. If people were killing each other in coordinated groups before agriculture, before property lines, before anyone had a reason to fight over a harvest, then war might not be a side effect of civilization at all. It might be older than civilization. It might be older than farming itself. So the real question becomes, what were they actually fighting over? Here's where it gets interesting, because the answer probably wasn't land in the way we think about land today. Early hunter-gatherers didn't own property the way farmers eventually would. What they had instead was access. Access to a river during a drought. Access to a hunting ground when animals were scarce. Access to water when the climate turned dry, which is exactly the kind of environmental stress researchers believe was happening around Nataruk at the time. When a resource that a whole group depends on starts disappearing, and there's another group nearby competing for the same shrinking resource, violence becomes one available option. Not the only one, but an option that, apparently, got used. There's also a colder logic underneath this, one that economist Samuel Bowles has spent years studying. Bowles looked at mortality data from dozens of hunter-gatherer societies, historical and modern, and found that in many of them, deaths from violence between groups were startlingly common, in some cases making up a meaningful share of all adult male deaths. His argument is that this kind of lethal competition between groups may have actually shaped human evolution itself, favoring traits like group loyalty, cooperation within your own band, and a willingness to take real risks defending it. Which sounds almost backwards. Fighting outsiders made people better at bonding with insiders. Think about how sports rivalries work today. A stadium full of strangers becomes a unified crowd the second there's an opposing team to boo. That's a faint, harmless echo of something that used to have life-or-death stakes. And it's worth asking yourself honestly, next time you feel that instant us versus them pull, watching a game, arguing online with people from a different city or country, whether that reaction feels learned or whether it feels older than that, like it switched on before you had a chance to think about it. Not every researcher agrees this proves war is some fixed part of human nature, and that argument is nowhere near settled. Some anthropologists point out that Nataruk is one site, from one moment, in one specific environment under specific pressure, and that a single massacre doesn't automatically mean warfare was constant or routine. Other hunter-gatherer groups, studied by researchers like Douglas Fry, show long stretches with very little group violence at all, sometimes generations without any evidence of conflict between bands. The honest answer is probably not that humans are wired for war and nothing else. It's that under the right pressure, scarcity, fear, competition for something everyone needs, the capacity for organized violence was already there, tens of thousands of years before anyone built a wall or planted a crop. The pressure doesn't have to be constant for the capability to be real. What agriculture and civilization changed wasn't whether people could organize to kill each other. It was the scale. Once you have permanent settlements, stored grain, and defined borders, you have more things worth fighting over, more people to fight with, and more reasons to remember old grievances instead of just walking away. The instinct came first. The reasons multiplied later. So here's the picture. 10,000 years ago, on the edge of a drying lake, a group of people who had never seen a farm, a fort, or a flag, organized themselves, armed themselves, and killed a rival group over what the land could no longer give both of them. That impulse, protect your people, compete for what's scarce, treat outsiders as a threat when resources run thin, didn't start with kings or nations. It's older than both. Every border dispute you've ever half-followed on the news is running on hardware that was already installed at Nataruk. The land has changed. The weapons have changed almost beyond recognition. The reason hasn't moved nearly as far as we'd like to believe.